Hello there, thank you for joining me. This is Jack Marshall here from the LCSP, and today I'm going to be showing you how to play Boogie-Woogie on piano. There's a few things I want to cover today, and it's worth bearing in mind that this is going to be a bit more of a beginner's tutorial, so if you're an advanced player, just remember that this is going to be a little bit more basic. If you do like the work that we do here at the LCSP, then be sure to go check out our website at contemporaryschoolofpiano.com, where you can ask for our free resources pack full of really great materials, stuff to help you with your playing, something I would have killed for had I found it when I was learning, so be sure you check that out. Having said all that, let's take a look at what we'll be playing. So, to begin with, the first thing we're going to be doing is looking at the left hand. Now, the left hand is pretty straightforward, but the hard part is going to be keeping it consistent and keeping it going. There's two shapes to this, and it's C and G and C and A. And you do that twice on each. The way I would do this is that I have my little finger bouncing off C every time, and my second finger playing the G, and my thumb playing off of the A. So it's second and fifth, first and fifth, second and fifth, first and fifth. And you want to get used to just kind of getting this rolling first of all. So start it slow, you're doing it twice on each. And you want to do this as comfortably as you can, to the point where you can almost have a conversation with someone whilst you're doing it. We're following a 12-bar blues form, which means we'll be going to F. Then we're moving up to G, down to F, and then back to C. So there's a lot of emphasis just on having that left hand feel comfortable to the point where you're not even thinking about it. That's really important. Bearing in mind that you're playing fifths and sixths, so when you go to F, you'll be playing F and C, to F and D. And when you go to the fifth chord of this whole thing, which will be G, you'll be playing G and D, and G and E. So those are the only things you do in that. And I would start by just moving your way through a 12-bar blues form, right? Which is 12 bars. First four is normally of C, although you can sometimes change the second bar to be going up to the fourth to F. You know, some people do that a lot. Like that, you see? But the idea is you're just following the form comfortably with this left hand, right? And you want to get used to that before you do anything in your right, because I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with what happens the second that you try and do something interesting in your right hand. It disrupts what happens in your left. So get that left hand as comfortable as possible. For the right hand, we have this sort of pattern. Relatively straightforward again. Tricky when you have it together with the left, and the reason why that is the left hand has two shapes that it's hitting, but the right hand has been given three shapes. First shape being a normal C major chord, next one being like an F inversion, and then the next one being a seventh. So that's G and B flat there. And when you're doing this, I'm not hitting them all out together. I'm splitting them. I'm doing this sort of seesaw sort of a motion to it. And it's very important that you start with the top two rather than the thumb. I see a lot of people start like this, and that throws off the whole game. So make sure you start with the top two first. And you're using the thumb to bounce in between. For the fingers that you use on this, I would say try and keep it comfortable wherever you decide. But if you're curious as to what I am doing, I sometimes play my first shape, which is C, E, and G, with my thumb, second and fourth finger. which means then I have my third and fifth then to pivot to the F and A after that. Or, to be honest with you, what you could actually do is just use your third and fifth finger and move it up each time, because you have the thumb breaking the pattern by just going like that. You have a thumb in between, so you can just move the third and fifth finger up as you do this, and that would be fine as well. So when you're in on F, the notes that you'll be playing is an F major chord, up to B flat and D, C and E flat, and then back to B flat and D. Let me just keep that going. And then of course you go back to C. The last one being then of course is G, which when we get there, we hit a normal G major triad. Then we move up those top notes. This one's quite a nice one because it's all white notes. You may occasionally have noticed that I slide off of the thirds into these shapes. So sometimes, just to give it a bit more of a bluesier feel, I'll slide from like a minor third into a major third. So that's like. Sometimes it can be very like quick and brisk. So, or sometimes I'll make more of a meal out of it, which is it's a slightly different rhythm there, right? But if you want to just add a little bit more to it, just slide off of it. I sometimes do it on the top shapes too, so when I hit G and B flat, that's where I'm hitting. So that's the right hand. Now the trickiest part of this whole thing is putting those two things together. And this is usually where people hit their first block. And it's because they try and charge straight away into it at full speed. And that isn't going to work here, right? Just because we can comprehend something doesn't always mean our hands have caught up to that yet. So what we need to do, as slowly as is necessary, is to put these two things together, even free of rhythm, if necessary here, just to make our hands understand that this is the motion, right? And the left hand and the right hand are always playing in sync together with this particular way of doing this. So anytime there's a note in the right hand, there's a note in the left. That's worth keeping in mind. So here's how I would recommend doing it, depending on how quick you or slow you find yourself getting to grips with these things. Here's how I would do it. It's worth remembering that the left hand is playing each of those shapes twice. All right, remember that. Now, I know we're doing it with a bit of a shuffle here, but for the time being of working out how to put this together, it might be worth just taking that out of it and just doing it quite straight rhythm, just to get the motion right. So, the first thing that happens, that's the first part of this whole thing. The left hand hits C and G twice, and the right hand is just seesawing off that C major shape. And I'm breaking this down, and I would recommend doing this with anything you work on, is to break it into chunks. Just that first little part. You slide off it. Left hand hasn't moved at all, just C and G twice. Now the next part is when you move the right hand up to F and A. Now the left hand has now moved its shape to C and A. It's almost following the little finger here a bit. Right, remember it's twice in the left hand, very important. Now, when we move up to the next part, to the seventh, we're getting a hit C, G and B flat, and the left hand is going back to C and G. And then we return back to the middle shape in the right hand. So that's F, A and C again, or C, F and A, beg your pardon. On the left, we have C and A. So all that together, we'll do it quite slowly. First one. Second one. Third one. That's back to our second shape again. You're not after speed here. You're just after functionality. You want to know how it's behaving. Then you can worry about bringing the speed up. So, together. you can slowly bring this up. See, and eventually you get close to the speed that you would imagine yourself getting this to. Of course, we need to do this for the other keys as well, so we need to go to F and G for a 12-bar blues. So when we're doing this, it's exactly the same thing. Now, the good thing is that the work you've put in to work it out in C will transfer over to when you do it in these other keys, because the motion stays the same. The notes are different, the functionality doesn't change. Same thing again. You C and F and C in the left hand twice, and the right hand's playing the root chord shape of split like this. And then it moves up, keeps moving to the third shape on top, back to the second shape in the middle. Right, and you do this again slowly and as slow as necessary just to get the mechanic of this. Same when you move to G. Yeah. And once you have all of those shapes together, you'll notice there's a bit of leaping around when you play this. That is actually quite a boogie-woogie characteristic there, which means that you'll be heading from one place. There's like sudden jolts that you have to kind of hit, and that is quite to the theme a lot of the time of what you find, depending on the different left hand or right hand patterns that you have, because a lot of these, a lot of this sort of type of playing, you can switch out different patterns, and this is a very pattern-based style of music. So you can have one pattern in your right hand and put it over the left hand, and then you can have a different pattern in the right hand and see how that would work against the same left hand. And vice versa to that, you can actually change what the pattern in the left hand is doing. So you could go from this sort of boogie-woogie shuffle thing to a bit more of almost like a stride. So, you can match up against that with the same right hand pattern or change it, and these are very interspersible, these sort of things. So it's quite a fun thing to like add to your armory when you come up with different riffs and patterns like this. So let's try and put all of this together then in a 12-bar blues fashion, going through the whole form very slowly, just to kind of get that mechanic going between the two hands. So here we go, starting from C, and we'll play all the way through. That's a 12-bar blues there that we're using with that pattern. And you can do that as slow or as fast as you like. You just want to get the movement correct first. And then we bring the speed up. So there's a few other things that you can do along with this. We are just doing one pattern here, but even with this one pattern in our right hand, we can change it a little bit to make it more interesting still, without even necessarily changing the notation. We can change the direction that we're going in, for example. So at the moment we're starting from, I like to spread it out in like 1, 2, and 3, or low, medium, high, right? So that, we have the lower shape, middle shape, and the higher shape. So we can change the direction. We could start from the top, for example, going and then top, middle, bottom, top, middle, bottom. We can go in between both of them, and then occasionally swap to different ones, so change the order up. So you don't always have to go every single time do the same sort of bottom, middle, top middle, bottom, middle. You can be a bit creative with it, you know, and I'd recommend doing that. You know, you want to kind of get a bit looser with this sort of stuff. And this whole thing that you're doing in the right hand, the left hand should be just chugging along like an engine, and it's going to get more and more comfortable the more you do different things in the right. Because eventually what we want to do is to inspire a little bit of independence between the left and the right hand, which most people find the most tricky. So, once that's a bit more comfortable under your hands, what I would recommend you trying to throw in with this is transitioning into the next key. So if you're moving from C to F, for example, you know, at the moment we're doing this sort of snapping motion where, you know, we're moving. And it's jolting to it. One way to get around this is to chromatically walk a bass line up to the next spot that you're heading to. So for example, if you're moving from C to F, you can use a series of notes to walk to that F. So this is just one example, but this is one that I certainly use quite a bit, and that is I'll be walking from C to D to E flat to E to F, and then that's got me perfectly then on the F there. So the trick is to do this in amongst the pattern that you're using. So if I'm playing, I'm going to be playing this the whole way we're doing C, and then I'll get to the bar, the one bar just before we move to the F, which will be the fourth bar of this 12-bar blues here. So the fourth bar of the whole thing is on C, the fifth bar will be the F, and I'm going to use the entirety of that fourth bar to walk chromatically. Almost fully chromatically. I'm skipping one note first. So I'm moving up to, as we said, we're moving to D, then D sharp, E, and F. So, and we'll be doing that in crotchets. So that means we'll have 4 beats to do that with, because we're in 4/4. So that's and then we're there, you see. So the way that lines up, if we do it very slowly. Sounds a little strange when you do it completely slowed down like that, but once you get up to speed, like that sort of disappears there. One way to help you do this is you can think at the right hand, anytime 2 notes happen, so E and G or F and A or G and B flat, that'll be when the left hand is playing a note, right? So it's because the right hand's thumb is bouncing off of the offbeat, so it's like. And then there, sorry. So you see how that links up? Right, so fingers wise, it's a little bit tricky to get this to work, but what I usually use is on my 5th finger, 4th finger, 3rd finger, 2nd finger, and then I'll jolt straight away to that 5th and 2nd finger back for my pattern normally. So again, you might want to do this slowly just to get your hands used to it, but you know, you work through the first 4 bars of C, and on that 4th bar, you're going to be using that walking bass to get up to F, to where you need to be. Here it comes. And then you're there. There's one for going from C to G, or you could even do one from F back to C, actually. It's more or less the same mechanic, but the one from C to G, so this is just before the last 4 bars will be kicking in. So this would be on the 8th bar that you'll be hitting this. So you'll be going from C to G, and all I'm doing differently, it's exactly the same thing, but all I'm doing differently, instead of going from C to D, I'm going up to C to E. Because that way then I've got enough notes chromatically to walk to G. And the notes is C, E, F, F sharp, and then I'm in my G pattern. So that would be like this. And then you're ready for the last bit. So these transitions can be a really good, effective way of just like breaking up a little bit of the monotony of the left hand. It's also a good way, again, to inspire a little bit of independence from your hands as well. It's just making your hands work at this stage. We're not worried about doing too many of these solo things, or we're just, you know, using scales and being completely independent of the left hand yet. A lot of the thing that helps to build up independence of the hands is to play together with them first. We want to just get comfortable, like, keeping this motion going. So with that being said, let's try and do that whole 12 bars with the transition from C to F and C to G. So here we go. Okay, I think that would be a good place to leave it for now. But remember, the main theme of this today has been to just get the left and the right hand working together in unison, yeah? Just getting locked into that pocket and just trying to keep it consistent and fluent and eventually building up the speed. So do it slowly, get it to the point where you're not even thinking about it almost, and just repetition, and you will get it and you'll be able to bring that speed up. It's going to be the first step to learning some more complicated things in the right hand, where you can learn more riffs or sort of licks that kind of work against the left hand, and then indeed learning more things in the left hand as well. So you're going to just be adding more and more to your armory with this, and it's a great thing to learn. It's a good fun way of playing. So see how you get on. Remember that you can check out our website for that free resources pack. I really recommend you doing that. So thanks very much for watching. Really appreciate it, and I will see you soon, I hope. Thank you.